Tell me again why it's fair for everyone to help themselves to what's mine. My voice was eerily calm as I stared down at the scattered legal documents on the coffee table. The mahogany surface, polished to a mirror shine, just as Grandma Helen had always kept it, reflected the stunned faces of my family. My mother Eleanor, her perfectly manicured eyebrows arched in disbelief. My uncle Robert, his facade of charm cracking to reveal the desperation beneath. And my sister Amy, clutching her designer purse like a shield, her Instagram perfect makeup unable to hide her shock. I'm Sarah Williams, and today, after 29 years of quietly nodding and complying, I was finally standing my ground. This guest house, I said, tapping the property deed with my index finger, has been legally mine for 6 years. 6 years during which you all continue to treat it, and me, as family property to be used and discarded at will. Sarah, you're being ridiculous, my mother managed, her voice carrying that familiar note of dismissal that had once made me shrink. But not today. This has always been family property, and your uncle needs. What Uncle Robert needs, I interrupted, something I'd never dared do before, is to stop draining family resources and face consequences for once in his life. Uncle Robert's face flushed red. You ungrateful little. Careful, Jessica warned, her lawyer's briefcase open beside her. Everything said in this room can be entered into record. 6 years of waiting. 6 years of planning. 6 years of being underestimated by the people who should have protected me. And now, watching their faces as they realized I'd outmaneuvered them all, I felt something rise within me, not just triumph, but a bittersweet vindication that tasted like both victory and loss. How did we get here? When did the people who should love you the most become the ones you need protection from? Flashback the morning declaration. It had begun 3 days earlier on a Tuesday morning. Mom had invited me for breakfast, which should have been my first warning sign. Eleanor Williams didn't do family breakfast unless she wanted something. The scent of blueberry muffins filled her kitchen, her specialty, the one she'd always make on birthdays and special occasions. For a fleeting moment, wrapped in that familiar sweet aroma, I felt like a child again, safe and loved. But the comfort vanished as soon as I saw the calculated smile on her face. Sarah, darling, she said, sliding a muffin onto my plate without looking up from her phone. I've been meaning to talk to you about the guest house. My hand paused, coffee cup halfway to my lips. The vanilla creamer I'd added did nothing to calm my suddenly racing heart. What about it? I asked, though I already knew what was coming. 6 years of waiting had given me an almost preternatural sense for when the attack would finally arrive. Robert's going through a difficult time, Mom said, her voice taking on that familiar guilt-inducing tone she perfected over decades. The divorce hit him hard, and now with losing his job at the firm. I took a slow sip of coffee, letting her continue. Family helps family, she concluded, as if reciting a sacred commandment. He'll be moving into the guest house today. I've already given him your spare key. In my mind, I could see Grandma Helen, sitting in her favorite armchair 6 years ago, her hand trembling slightly as she pressed her house key into my palm. This is your sanctuary, Sarah, she'd whispered. I want you to always have it, no matter what they try to take from you. The memory straightened my spine. The guest house isn't available, I said quietly. Mom finally looked up from her phone, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows arching in surprise. In her world, my objection was inconceivable. Don't be difficult, Sarah. It's been sitting practically empty since your grandmother died. You barely use it. I bit my tongue, suppressing the urge to tell her how I'd lived there full time for the past 6 years, finding peace in the small sanctuary my grandmother had given me. How the walls still held echoes of Helen's voice, her laugh, the way she'd squeeze my hand and tell me I was stronger than I knew. I live there, I said instead. Full time for the past 6 years. Oh, please. Mom waved her hand dismissively, the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist catching the morning light. It was new, probably another gift from her latest boyfriend, trying to buy his way into our family's perceived wealth. You can move back home. Your old room is still available, though Amy's using it for storage right now. The mention of my younger sister made my jaw clench. Amy, the golden child, who'd gotten a brand new car for her 16th birthday while I got a lecture about being grateful for hand-me-downs. Amy, whose Instagram account portrayed a perfect life of designer clothes and exotic vacations, all funded by grandma's credit cards that she'd borrowed while Helen was too sick to notice. A car door slammed outside. Through the kitchen window, I watched Uncle Robert's beat-up Chrysler pull into the driveway, trailing oil spots on the concrete. Right on cue. I gave him your spare key, Mom said, standing up with an air of finality. He'll start moving in today. I expect you to help him settle in. My hands trembled slightly as I set down my coffee cup. You gave him my key? Don't make this difficult, Sarah. It's what your grandmother would have wanted. I almost laughed at that. If she only knew what Grandma Helen had actually wanted. If she'd bothered to listen during any of those final months instead of planning Amy's graduation party and covering up Robert's latest financial scheme. The front door opened and Robert's booming voice filled the house. Eleanor, where's my favorite sister? He appeared in the doorway, all fake charm and desperate energy. His shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes had that familiar hungry look they got when he was about to ask for something. I'd seen that look as a child, when he'd visit at Christmas only to leave with Grandma's antique silver. I'd seen it as a teenager, when he'd borrow her car and return it with an empty tank. And I'd seen it as an adult, sitting beside Grandma's hospital bed when she discovered her savings account had been drained. There's my niece. He moved to hug me, but I stepped back. Uncle Robert, I said flatly. Now don't look so glum, he chuckled. We're going to be neighbors, just like old times. Remember when I used to stay in the guest house and sneak you candy? What I remembered was him stealing Grandma's jewelry while she was in the hospital. What I remembered was her crying when she discovered her emergency fund had vanished, money she needed for heart medication. I've got some boxes in the car, he said, jingling my spare key. Be a dear and help me unload. My mother beamed at him, then shot me a warning look. Sarah will help, won't you, sweetheart? I stood up slowly, smoothing down my shirt. 6 years of waiting, of careful planning, of quiet documentation. 6 years of playing the good daughter while making sure every legal document was in order. 6 years of watching them all underestimate me, just like they always had. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I need to make a call first. To whom? Mom asked sharply. My lawyer. Flashback, the seeds of resistance. There had been a moment, 6 years ago, when everything changed. Not the dramatic confrontation happening now, but a quiet awakening in a hospital room lit only by fluorescent lights and beeping monitors. Grandma Helen, once so strong and vibrant, lay small against the white sheets. Her silver hair, always neatly styled for her former teaching career, spread across the pillow like a faded halo. I held her hand, the hand that had taught me to prune roses cut clean at an angle to let the plant breathe, that had graded thousands of elementary school papers, that had built a life of dignity and independence from her teaching salary. They're vultures, Sarah, she whispered, her voice thin but her blue eyes sharp with clarity. Robert took my emerald pendant, your grandfather's anniversary gift, to me. It's gone. I'll talk to Mom, I promised. We'll get it back. Helen's grip tightened with surprising strength. Your mother won't listen. She never has. She's been cleaning up Robert's messes since they were children. It's a pattern too deep to break. A tear slid down her weathered cheek. I should have protected her better. Should have seen what my husband was doing to her, making her believe that taking care of her brother was her only worth. I'd never heard this before, this explanation for Mom's blind devotion to her catastrophe of a brother. There was family history here I'd never been allowed to see. But I can protect you, Helen continued. The guest house, it's separate from the family estate. I bought it with my teaching pension. It's mine to give, and I'm giving it to you. Grandma, you don't have to. I've already done it, she interrupted, her voice stronger. The papers are signed. The deed is transferred. It's legally yours now. She pulled me closer, her breath smelling of hospital antiseptic. They'll try to take it from you when they find out. Don't you budge. Not an inch. You're stronger than all of them, Sarah, because you see the truth. Later that week, we recorded her video testimony. A month later, I moved into the guest house permanently. 2 months after that, Grandma Helen was gone, but her protection remained in legal documents, in recorded evidence, and in the strength she'd helped me find. I'd spent the following 6 years working as a legal assistant at Morrison and Associates, where my old law school roommate Jessica had become our rising star attorney. Every lunch break, every weekend, I gathered evidence. Bank statements showing Robert's systematic drain on Helen's accounts, property records revealing suspicious transfers, hospice staff testimonies about Helen's mental clarity until the very end. All while playing the role they expected: compliant, predictable Sarah, always doing what she was told, never making waves. Until today. At the confrontation, the room went silent after I mentioned my lawyer. The jingling of keys in Robert's hand stopped. My mother's smile froze. "Your lawyer?" she repeated. "Yes," I said, my voice steady for the first time that morning. "You see, there's something we need to discuss about the ownership of that guest house." Robert laughed nervously. "Come on now, don't be dramatic. It's family property." I looked him straight in the eye as I pressed the call button. "No, Uncle Robert, it's my property, and you're not moving in." My mother's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" I held up my hand as the phone rang, watching their faces. 6 years of waiting, and finally, the moment had arrived. "Hello, Jessica?" "Yes, they're here now. Could you bring over those documents we discussed?" Time to end the charade. The 30 minutes it took Jessica to arrive felt like hours. My mother paced the kitchen, her heels clicking against the tile floor, an expensive nervous habit she developed during her years working at the insurance company, where appearance always trumped substance. Uncle Robert slumped in a chair, trying to look unbothered but checking his phone every few seconds. "This is ridiculous," Mom muttered for the third time. "Your grandmother left everything to be managed by the family." "I have the paperwork." "The paperwork you never actually read," I interrupted, because dealing with boring details was beneath you. She stopped pacing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've been signing whatever Robert put in front of you for 20 years, I said quietly. "Did you ever wonder why Grandma stopped trusting you with her finances? Why she started asking me to help instead?" A flash of hurt crossed my mother's face, so quick I almost missed it. For a moment, I glimpsed the wounded child beneath the controlling exterior, the little girl who'd learned early that her only value was in protecting her brother, in maintaining the family image no matter the cost. The doorbell rang before she could respond. Jessica stood there in her crisp blazer, leather briefcase in hand. 6 years ago, she'd been my roommate in law school before I dropped out to care for Grandma full-time. Now she was the kind of lawyer who made people nervous just by walking into a room. Her serene confidence was something I'd always envied, and something I was learning to cultivate in myself. "Hello, Sarah," she said professionally, then nodded to my mother and uncle. "Mrs. Williams, Mr. Gray." "Who exactly are you?" my mother demanded. "Jessica Morrison, representing Ms. Sarah Williams in matters concerning the property at 1542 Maple Street, commonly known as the guest house." Uncle Robert stood up. "Listen, there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Jessica said, opening her briefcase. "Just facts that some parties weren't aware of." "Shall we sit?" My mother's face hardened. "I don't appreciate this ambush." "Funny," I said. "That's exactly how I felt this morning when you announced someone else was moving into my house." Jessica spread documents across the kitchen table. 6 years ago, before her death, Helen Williams had this property legally separated from the main estate. She then transferred full ownership to Sarah through private deed. "That's impossible," my mother snapped. "I handled all of Mom's affairs." "No," I corrected her. "You delegated all of Mom's affairs to me. Remember? You were too busy planning Amy's graduation party." Uncle Robert leaned forward, squinting at the papers. "These could be fake." "The county recorder's office disagrees," Jessica said smoothly, sliding forward another document. "As does the notary public, the land survey office, and Mrs. Helen Williams herself in this video deposition." My mother's face went pale. "Video?" I pulled out my tablet and pressed play. Grandma Helen's face filled the screen, her silver hair neatly styled, her blue eyes sharp and clear. I, Helen Williams, being of sound mind, declare this property at 1542 Maple Street to be transferred in full to my granddaughter Sarah Williams. Uncle Robert's chair scraped back. Turn it off. But Grandma's voice continued. I make this decision with full awareness of my family's likely objections. This house represents my personal property, purchased with my teaching pension, separate from the family estate. I choose Sarah as its sole owner because she alone has shown true care for both the property and for me in my final years. The words struck me anew, even though I'd watched this video countless times over the years for reassurance. Each time, I felt Grandma's strength flowing into me. Each time, I renewed my promise to honor her trust. My mother's hand shook as she reached for the papers. Why didn't she tell me? She tried, I said quietly, remembering all those attempts. Multiple times. You always change the subject. But Robert needs to find his own place. I cut in, just like he needed to find his own money instead of draining Grandma's savings account. Uncle Robert's face turned red. That's a lie. Bank statements don't lie, Jessica interjected, producing another folder. Would you like to discuss those too? He grabbed his keys from the table. This is bull. Language my mother snapped automatically, then turned to me. Sarah, you can't do this. He's family. Family? I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Was it family when he sold Grandma's antique jewelry while she was in the hospital? Was it family when you told me I was being dramatic for reporting it? I never said it. You did. I stood up. The house is mine, legally, formally, and permanently mine. Robert needs to leave now. You'll regret this, he growled, heading for the door. No, I said. I really won't. The aftermath. After they left, Jessica squeezed my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, gathering the documents with shaking hands. Through the window, I watched my mother's car pull away, Uncle Robert's Chrysler following close behind. The confrontation had gone exactly as I'd anticipated, yet I felt strangely hollow. Victory, it seemed, didn't taste as sweet as I'd imagined during those 6 years of waiting. They'll be back, Jessica warned. I know. I tucked the papers into my bag. But I've got something they don't. What's that? Proof. Time. And Grandma's blessing. I headed for the door of my mother's house, then paused. Want to see their faces when they realize I've already changed the locks? Jessica grinned. Lead the way. As we walked across the lawn to the guest house, my house, I thought about the path that had led here. Law school had been my mother's idea, not mine. Lawyers make money, she'd said, as if that was all that mattered. I dropped out in my second year, ostensibly to care for Grandma, but truthfully because I'd realized I didn't want to build my life around my mother's expectations. The irony wasn't lost on me that legal knowledge had ultimately given me the power to break free from her control. We'd barely reached the porch when I heard footsteps behind us. My mother stood there, key extended, face tight with anger. We need to talk, she said. I squared my shoulders. 6 years of preparation had led to this moment. Yes, I agreed. We really do. The confrontation continues. That key won't work, I said, watching my mother jiggle the handle. I had the locks changed last week. She spun around, face flushed with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You planned this. All of it. Yes. How dare you? She stepped toward me, finger pointed accusingly. After everything this family has done for you. Done for me? I unlocked the door with my new key, savoring the solid click of the mechanism. Please, elaborate. Jessica stayed close behind me as we entered the guest house. It smelled like fresh coffee and the lavender candles Grandma always loved. Everything was exactly as I kept it, clean, organized, peaceful until now, with my mother's fury disturbing the carefully maintained tranquility. Your uncle is going through a difficult time, my mother started, falling back on her oldest excuse. He's been going through difficult times for 20 years, I interrupted. And somehow, those difficulties always end up being someone else's problem. A car door slammed outside. Amy burst in, designer purse swinging, her perfectly styled hair bouncing with indignation. Mom just called me. What the hell, Sarah? Perfect timing, I said. Family meeting. This isn't funny, Amy snapped. I looked at my younger sister, truly looked at her. Behind the expensive clothes and Instagram-ready appearance was a 24-year-old woman who'd been shaped by the same toxic family dynamics that had nearly broken me. The difference was that while I'd been cast as the responsible one, the dutiful daughter, Amy had been given the role of the golden child, the special one who could do no wrong. Neither position had done us any favors. Uncle Robert needs a job, I suggested. And personal accountability therapy. My mother sank onto the couch, Grandma's couch, like she owned it. You're being cruel. No, I said, pulling out my phone. This is cruel. I played the video I'd taken 6 years ago. Grandma lying in her hospital bed, tears streaming down her face as she discovered her jewelry missing, her voice weak but clear. Robert promised he'd return them. He promised. Amy shifted uncomfortably. That was ages ago. 2 months before she died, I corrected. While you were all too busy to visit, I was there, recording everything. Is that why she left you the house? My mother demanded. Because you manipulated her? The accusation stung more than I wanted to admit. Had I manipulated Grandma? Had my presence during those final months been calculated rather than loving? For a moment, doubt crept in, as it often had during the long years of waiting. Then I remembered the look in Helen's eyes when she handed me the key, not manipulation, but recognition. She'd seen something in me that even I hadn't fully recognized yet. Jessica cleared her throat. I have statements from the hospice staff, Mrs. Williams. They all witnessed your mother's mental clarity and her explicit wishes. This isn't legal, my mother insisted, desperately clinging to denial. Actually, Jessica said, it's ironclad. Would you like to see the property survey again? The deed transfer? The video deposition? Or perhaps the bank statements showing Mr. Gray's systematic withdrawal of your mother's savings? A heavy knock at the door made us all jump. Uncle Robert barged in, waving papers. I called my lawyer. He says, your lawyer can call me directly, Jessica interrupted, handing him her card. Though I should warn you, challenging this will only make public everything else we've documented. He crumpled the card. You little snake. You sat there for years, planning this. Yes, I said simply. I did. Just like you sat there for years, planning how to drain Grandma's accounts. That's different. She needed heart medication. I cut in, the memory still sharp enough to make my voice shake. But she couldn't afford it after you emptied her emergency fund. Amy gasped. What? Oh, you didn't know? I turned to my sister. Ask Mom. She covered it up, wrote it off as a banking error rather than admit her precious brother was stealing from our dying grandmother. My mother stood up sharply. That's enough. No, it's not, I said, my voice rising with years of suppressed emotion. For years, I watched you all take and take. You treated Grandma's house like a hotel, her savings like a personal ATM. And when she needed you most, you were too busy with your own lives to notice she was fading. We loved her, Amy whispered, and I could see genuine pain in her eyes. Love isn't enough, I said, softening my tone slightly. She needed protection from him. I pointed at Uncle Robert. And from you. I looked at my mother. And she trusted me to provide it. By stealing her property, Robert snarled. By honoring her wishes, I corrected. This house was her refuge. Now it's mine. And none of you are welcome here. My mother's face hardened. You'll regret this. Family is all we have. No, I said. Family is what we choose. And I choose to honor Grandma's choice. This isn't over, Robert threatened, heading for the door. Actually, it is, Jessica said. Any further harassment will result in legal action. And trust me, you don't want those documents becoming public record. They left one by one. Robert first, slamming the door. Amy next, unable to meet my eyes. My mother last, pausing at the threshold. You waited for this, she said quietly. You planned this. Yes, I replied. for 6 years. After they were gone, Jessica helped me double check the locks. Through the window, I watched their cars pull away, leaving oil stains on my driveway. You okay? Jessica asked. I touched the wall where Grandma's favorite photo hung, the two of us in her garden, both smiling. I will be. They might try something else, she warned. Let them try, I said. I learned from the best how to play the long game. Outside, the evening sun cast long shadows across my porch. My porch, just like Grandma wanted. The days after, the call started at dawn. Aunt Patricia first, her voice shrill with righteous anger. How could you do this to your own uncle? Your grandmother would be ashamed. I let it go to voicemail. Then came Cousin Mark. You've torn this family apart. Uncle David, your mother is devastated. Each message more dramatic than the last. By noon, my phone had 37 missed calls and 62 text messages. I turned it off and went to water Grandma's roses. Quite the show yesterday, called a voice from next door. Martha, our elderly neighbor, stood at the fence in her gardening hat. She'd lived next door for 40 years and had seen everything. You heard? Honey, the whole street heard, she smiled. About time, if you ask me. I adjusted the sprinkler. Everyone thinks I'm the villain. Everyone thought your grandmother was cruel too. When she finally stood up to your grandfather back in '85, Martha leaned on the fence. Truth's just calmer, with better manners. You did right. A car pulled up to the main house. Amy's red convertible, the one she'd bought with Grandma's credit card while Helen was on morphine. She got out, clutching a stack of papers. Incoming, Martha muttered. Want me to call the police? Not yet, I said, turning off the water. Amy marched across the lawn, her designer heels sinking into the grass. Look what you've done. She thrust her phone in my face. It showed her latest Instagram post, already flooded with comments. My sister's violent takeover of family property, I read aloud. Interesting choice of words. Mom's a wreck, Amy snapped. Uncle Robert had to sleep in his car. He has money for a hotel, I said. Trust me, I've seen the bank statements. You're obsessed. All these years, collecting evidence like some crazy person. All these years, watching you all take advantage of a dying woman, I counted. Amy flinched. That's not fair. I loved Grandma. You loved her credit card, I corrected. The one you borrowed to buy that convertible you're driving. She said I could. She was on morphine, Amy. She couldn't even sign her name. My sister's face crumpled. Why are you being so mean? The question caught me off guard. Was I being mean? Or was I finally being honest after years of silent compliance? Mean, I laughed softly, is watching your grandmother cry because she can't afford her medicine. Mean is ignoring her calls because you're too busy to visit. Mean is letting Uncle Robert steal her blind while pretending everything's fine. I didn't know about that, she whispered, and I believed her. Amy had been just 18 when Grandma died, young, self-absorbed, and deliberately kept in the dark by our mother. You didn't want to know, I said, but with less heat than before. A notification pinged on her phone, another comment on her post. She glanced at it, then at me. Everyone's saying horrible things about you. Let them. The truth has documentation. Mom's talking about legal action. Good luck with that. I turned back to the roses. Jessica's already filed restraining orders against Uncle Robert. One wrong move, and everything goes public. Including the bank records. Everything? There was fear in Amy's voice now. Amy's phone pinged again. This time her face went pale. Brian just commented. My stomach lurched. Brian Turner. My ex-boyfriend who dumped me for being too boring 2 years ago. Always playing it safe, always doing what your family wants, he'd said. The same Brian who'd apparently been seeing Amy behind my back. What did he say? He wants to know if you're okay. Says he's been thinking about you. Of course he had. Now that I had property and power, suddenly I was interesting again. Tell him to keep thinking, I said. From a distance. Amy tucked her phone away. This isn't over, you know. Mom won't let it go. I know. That's why I have security cameras installed. I pointed to the discrete devices under the eaves. And a police report filed just in case. You really did think of everything. I learned from the best. You all taught me exactly how cruel family can be. She turned to leave, then paused. Did Grandma? Did she ever say anything about me? At the end? The truth caught in my throat. Those final days, when Helen would look at old photos and whisper about regrets, about enabling bad behavior, about loving too much and protecting too little, about how Amy's self-centered attitude reminded her painfully of Robert at that age, and how she feared my sister would follow the same destructive path. She loved you, I said finally. But she was disappointed. Amy's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, I guess she had reason to be. After she left, Martha called over the fence again. You okay, honey? I looked at the roses, their petals bright against the dark soil. Grandma's roses. My roses now. No, I admitted. But I will be. The battle continues. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a photo of my front door with a message. You think you won, but you'll regret everything. I forwarded it to Jessica, then went inside to check the security cameras. The war wasn't over, but this time I was ready for battle. Brian's message arrived 3 days later. Coffee for old time's sake? I stared at my phone, remembering how he'd ended things. You're just so predictable, he'd said. Always playing it safe. Always doing what your family wants. I typed back. Starbucks, 2 p.m. Don't be late. He was, of course, 15 minutes late, sliding into the seat across from me with that practiced smile that used to make my heart skip. I noticed how different he looked now. His designer clothes that didn't quite disguise his insecurity, the expensive watch he kept checking, the way his eyes darted around the calf to see who might be watching us. Or perhaps he hadn't changed at all. Maybe I was the one seeing clearly for the first time. You look good, he said, his eyes appraising me with newfound interest. Really good. Amazing what standing up for yourself can do for your complexion, I replied, taking a deliberate sip of my coffee. He laughed too loudly. I saw Amy's post. Pretty intense stuff. Is that why you're here? For drama updates? Can I just want to see you? He reached for my hand across the table. I pulled back. 2 years of silence. And now you're interested? What a coincidence. His smile faltered. I've been thinking about us. About mistakes I made. You mean like dating my cousin behind my back? He choked on his coffee. How did you? Amanda told me last year at the family reunion. Right after you dumped her too. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. Check your mailbox, Snake. Everything okay? Brian asked, leaning forward with manufactured concern. Fine. I stood up. This was a mistake. Sarah? Wait. I turned back at the door. You know what's funny? You said I was predictable. Boring. But you're exactly what I expected. The last glimpse I caught of his face, shocked, offended that someone he discarded would reject him, was oddly satisfying. I drove home quickly, heart pounding. The mailbox was stuffed with papers, printouts of Amy's social media posts, each one covered in red marker. Thief and traitor scrolled across my face in angry capitals. Charming display, said a voice. Martha stood on her porch, watering can in hand. Your uncle's been driving by every few hours, taking pictures. Of course he has. I gathered the papers. Did you see who left these? No, but I got it on camera. She pointed to her doorbell camera. Already sent the footage to that lawyer friend of yours. My phone rang. Jessica. Hey, we need to talk. Your uncle's lawyer just filed something. I'll be right there. I turned to Martha. Thank you for watching out for me. Someone should, she said simply. Your grandmother would be proud. At Jessica's office, the news wasn't good. He's challenging the deed transfer, she explained. Claims Helen was mentally incompetent when she signed. That's ridiculous. We have the hospice records. I know, but it means court testimony. Are you ready for that? I thought of Grandma's voice, preserved in a voicemail I'd never deleted. After another of Robert's loans, she'd call me crying. One moment, I said to Jessica, pulling out my phone. I played the message on speaker. Sarah, baby, I need to tell you something. They'll try to take it from you. When they do, don't you budge. I'm leaving you this house because you're the only one who sees them for what they are, the only one strong enough to stand up to them. Don't let them bully you like they bullied me. I love you, sweetheart. Stay strong. Jessica's eyes widened. When was this? 2 weeks before she died, when she was supposedly incompetent. This changes everything. She started typing frantically. With this and the hospice records, we can file for summary judgment. No trial needed. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Hope you're ready for war. They're not going to stop, I said, a weariness creeping into my voice that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. No, Jessica agreed. But neither are we. Discoveries. The county records office smelled like old paper and stale coffee. I'd spent my lunch break here every day for a week, digging through property records, following a hunch I couldn't shake. Back again? The clerk, Martha, a different Martha, but with the same no-nonsense attitude as my neighbor, smiled knowingly. Found anything interesting? Maybe. I spread out the documents. See these signatures from when Uncle Robert helped manage Grandma's properties? Martha adjusted her glasses. The ones from 2015? Something's off about those. Exactly. I pulled out my phone, showing her photos of Grandma's genuine signature. Look at the difference. Oh, honey. Martha's eyes widened. That's not just off. That's forgery. My hands shook as I made copies. 3 properties sold between 2014 and 2015, all while Grandma was recovering from her first stroke, all signed over to shell companies that traced back to Robert's old business partner. My phone buzzed. Jessica, where are you? Your mother's here in my office. On my way. And Jessica? I found something big. When I arrived, Mom sat rigid in Jessica's office, her perfect posture betraying her anxiety. She'd always been like this, maintaining the appearance of control even when everything was falling apart. It was what her own father had taught her. Appearances matter more than reality. I wondered if she ever found freedom from that prison of perception. This has gone far enough, she announced as I walked in. I agree. I dropped the folder of records on the desk. Let's talk about Robert's creative accounting. What? The riverside property. The lake house. The downtown apartment. Ring any bells? Her face paled. Those were legitimate sales, with forged signatures. I spread out the documents. While Grandma was in the hospital. You don't understand. Actually, I do. Robert needed money again, so he forged Grandma's signature, sold her properties to his friends' companies at half their value, and probably got kickbacks. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because I have the original deeds, the sales records, and proof that Grandma was physically incapable of signing anything during those months. Jessica leaned forward. Mrs. Williams, this is serious. We're talking about federal fraud. My mother's hands trembled. Robert said she agreed. He said she needed the money for medical bills. Medical bills that he created by stealing her savings, I said. Did you ever actually ask her? She was sick. She was betrayed. By him. By you. By everyone who looked the other way. I was protecting the family. The words burst from her like they'd been trapped for decades. No. I stood up. You were protecting him. Like always. My mother buried her face in her hands, a gesture of vulnerability I'd never seen from her. For a moment, I glimpsed the weight she'd carried all these years, the impossible choices she thought she had to make. What do you want? She finally asked, her voice barely audible. I want you to stop fighting me on the guest house. Stop the social media attacks. Stop the harassment. Or what? All these records go to the FBI's fraud division. I'm sure they'd love to hear about Robert's creative financing. She looked up sharply. You'd send your own uncle to prison? You mean like you let him send Grandma to a cheaper nursing home because he drained her accounts? Silence filled the room. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice barely audible. He said he'd pay it back. Did he? No, she straightened her jacket, another armor adjustment. None of this leaves this room. I'll talk to Robert and Amy. The post will stop today. After she left, Jessica whistled low. That was intense. It's not over, I said. They'll try something else. My phone chimed, a text from Amy. Unji mom just called Robert. He's freaking out. What did you do? Then another message from an unknown number. You think you're smart. Watch your back. Robert? Jessica asked, reading over my shoulder. Probably. He's got the most to lose. Want me to file for a restraining order? Not yet. Let's keep this ace up our sleeve. Driving home, I passed Robert's car parked near the guest house. He sat inside, staring at my front door, phone pressed to his ear. I parked in the driveway and walked straight to his car. He rolled down the window, face red with anger. You little. 3 properties, I interrupted. 3 forged signatures. Want to guess how many years that's worth? He gripped the steering wheel. You're bluffing. Try me. Keep pushing, and these files go public. All of them. Eleanor won't let you. Mom can't stop me. Not anymore. His phone buzzed, probably my mother calling again. We stared at each other through the window, years of resentment crackling between us. Leave, I said quietly. Don't come back. He started his car, engine growling. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Unless you want the FBI involved. I watched him drive away, tires squealing. Inside the house, I played Grandma's voicemail again. Don't let them bully you like they bullied me. I won't, I whispered to her memory. I promise. The final showdown. My phone lit up with a calendar reminder. Court hearing tomorrow, 9 a.m. Robert's lawyer's challenge to the deed. Game on. The courthouse steps were slick with morning rain. Robert and his lawyer waited by the entrance, both in ill-fitting suits that seemed to emphasize their desperation. My mother stood apart from them, scrolling through her phone like this was just another inconvenient appointment. But I noticed how her fingers trembled slightly as she swiped, the only crack in her carefully maintained facade. Ready? Jessica asked, adjusting her briefcase. I thought of Grandma Helen, of the strength in her frail hands as she'd given me her house key, of her voice on the video deposition we were about to play, of the roses I'd pruned yesterday, their stems cut clean to encourage new growth. Born ready. Inside, the hearing room felt smaller than I expected. Robert's lawyer, a nervous man named Peters, shuffled his papers while the judge reviewed our files. Your Honor, Peters began, we contest the validity of this deed transfer on grounds of mental incompetency. Objection. Jessica stood. We have extensive medical documentation proving Mrs. Helen Williams' mental clarity during this period. Beyond medical records, Peters continued, we question the suspicious timing and secretive nature of this transfer. There was nothing suspicious about it, I said clearly. Grandma made her wishes known multiple times. The judge peered over his glasses. Do you have evidence of these wishes? Yes, Your Honor. Jessica approached with a laptop. We have video testimony. My mother's head snapped up. Robert shifted in his seat. The video played. Grandma sitting in her favorite chair, looking directly at the camera. I'm recording this because I know what's coming. My son-in-law tried to challenge my will once before, and my own brother contested my inheritance. Now I'm protecting what's mine. Robert's lawyer started to speak, but the judge held up his hand. Grandma continued, this guest house was bought with my teaching pension, my money, not family money. I'm giving it to Sarah because she's the only one who sees the truth, the only one who tried to stop the stealing, the manipulation, the lies. My mother's face went white. I'm of sound mind. Grandma's voice grew stronger. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I know they'll try to fight it. That's why I'm leaving this video. That's why I had 3 doctors certify my competency. That's why I'm doing this now, while I still can. The video ended. Silence filled the room. Your Honor, Peters tried again. Regardless of mental state, this transfer was done without family knowledge. Because the family was the threat, Jessica interrupted. As evidenced by these bank records showing systematic theft from Mrs. Williams' accounts. She produced the documents I'd found. Additionally, we have evidence of multiple fraudulent property transfers orchestrated by the plaintiff, Mr. Robert Gray, during this same period. Robert stood up suddenly. This is irrelevant. Sit down, Mr. Gray, the judge ordered. Ms. Morrison, continue. The guest house transfer was legal, documented, and witnessed. The plaintiff's challenge is not only baseless but appears to be part of a pattern of financial exploitation. That's a lie, Robert shouted. Mr. Gray, the judge warned. One more outburst and you'll be removed. Peters whispered urgently to Robert, who sank back into his chair, face red. Having reviewed all submitted evidence, the judge said, I find no basis for this challenge. The deed transfer stands. Case dismissed. Robert stormed out before the judge finished speaking. My mother stayed seated, staring at her hands. Mom? I approached her slowly. All this time, she whispered. You were protecting her. Someone had to, I should have. She trailed off, then stood abruptly. I need to go. Outside, Jessica hugged me. Congratulations. It's really over. Is it? Legally, yes. Emotionally. She shrugged. That's up to you. I watched my mother walk to her car alone. No Robert in sight, no Amy. Just a woman realizing how much she'd chosen not to see. Miss Williams? A court clerk hurried over. This was in with your grandmother's filed documents. It's marked personal. The envelope was old, Grandma's handwriting shaky but clear, for Sarah after the fight. Inside was a single photo and a note. The photo showed Grandma and me on the guest house porch, both laughing at something long forgotten. The note read, My dear Sarah, if you're reading this, you've done what I never could, stood your ground. The house is yours now, truly and finally. Use it well. Fill it with the love and strength they tried to take from us both. They'll call you cruel, selfish, wrong. But standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. I'm so proud of you, my brave girl. All my love, Grandma. A shadow fell across the paper. Amy stood there, mascara perfect this time. Is it true? She asked. About Robert stealing? Yes. And Mom knew. She chose not to know. There's a difference. Amy nodded slowly. The house. It was always meant for you, wasn't it? Yes. You'll be alone there. I'll be free there, I corrected. There's a difference in that too. She turned to leave, then paused. Take care of her roses, okay? I always have. I watched my sister walk away, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. In my hand, Grandma's photo caught the morning light. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. Finally, completely, the house was mine. Epilogue and new growth. The autumn wind scattered leaves across my porch as I pruned Grandma's roses. They'd bloomed late this year, defiant splashes of red against the cooling air. Mail's here. Martha called from her yard. Want me to grab yours? Please. I'd given her a spare key to my mailbox after the harassment stopped. Old habits die hard. She shuffled through the envelopes. Bill. Advertisement. Oh, something from your mother. My hand stilled on the rose bush. Mom hadn't contacted me since the courthouse. 3 weeks of silence. Want me to toss it? No. I wiped my hands on my jeans. I'll take it. The envelope was heavy, expensive stationery. Inside was a key, the old one to the guest house, and a letter. Sarah, I found this in Robert's things. He's gone, moved to Florida without telling anyone. Amy tracked him through social media. He's working at a car dealership, claiming he's starting fresh. I've been thinking about what your grandmother said in that video about seeing the truth. I didn't want to see it. It was easier to believe Robert's excuses, to dismiss your concerns, to pretend everything was fine. I failed her. I failed you. The house was always meant for you. You were always meant for more than we allowed you to be. I'm sorry, Mom. My phone buzzed. A text from Brian. Miss you. Coffee sometime? Delete. Another text came through from Amy. Mom showed me the bank records. All of them. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I started typing, deleted it, started again. I know. Can we talk? Actually talk? The roses needed finishing. The gutters needed cleaning. The porch needed sweeping. All the little tasks of home ownership that Grandma had taught me to love. Not yet, I replied. But maybe soon. Martha appeared at the fence again. Everything okay? Getting there. I showed her the letter. Mom apologized. Miracles never cease. She smiled. Your grandmother would be proud, you know. Not just of the house, of you. Standing tall, like her roses. I touched a bloom. Beautiful, but thorny. Speaking of thorny, Martha nodded toward the street. A familiar car was approaching, my mother's. She parked but didn't get out immediately, just sat there staring at the guest house like she was seeing it for the first time. Finally, she stepped out, carrying a box. Hi, she said tentatively. I found these. She set the box down. Documents, things your grandmother kept. I thought you should have them. I opened the box. On top was a photograph I'd never seen, Grandma as a young woman, standing proud in front of a classroom, her first year teaching. She was stronger than any of us, Mom said quietly. Like you. You could have been strong too, I replied. You could have stopped him. I know. She touched one of the roses gently. Is it too late to try? The wind picked up, sending more leaves dancing across the yard. Somewhere in the distance, a wind chime rang, the one Grandma had hung years ago. That depends, I said. Are you ready to see the truth? All of it? Yes. She met my eyes. Even the parts that hurt. I picked up my gardening shears. Want to learn how to prune roses? She stared at the shears, then at me. Understanding flickered across her face. This wasn't just about flowers. Yes, she said. Show me. I demonstrated the technique Grandma had taught me. You have to be careful but firm. Cut at an angle. Make clean breaks. Mom's hands shook slightly as she tried. Like this? Almost. I adjusted her grip. You have to mean it. Hesitation only makes it messy. We worked in silence for a while, the roses gradually taking shape under our hands. Clean breaks. Fresh starts. Room to grow. Robert called, she said finally. Wanted money. And I told him no. For the first time ever, I just said no. I nodded, trimming another branch. Good. Will you tell me about her? Mom asked. About the grandmother I didn't see? I looked at the guest house, my house, with its warm lights and solid walls. The home Grandma had created, that I'd protected, that stood as testament to both our strengths. Yes, I said. But first, you need to learn about roses. How they grow stronger after every pruning. How they survive winter. How they bloom again if you're brave enough to cut away the dead parts. Mom smiled slightly, understanding. I'm ready to learn. The wind chime rang again, clearer this time. Like laughter. Like forgiveness. Like the sound of truth finally breaking free. They wanted me gone. Now they're the ones who left. Funny how justice doesn't always come with applause, but it always comes.